Breaking news from the world of boxing. Chris Eubank Jr.'s promotional team are considering an appeal to the British Boxing Board of Control over an alleged elbow from Liam Smith in his stoppage victory. Eubank Jr. was brutally stopped by Smith in the fourth round of their British middleweight battle at the AO Arena in Manchester on Saturday night. But Kalle Sauerland of Wasserman Boxing, who promotes Eubank Jr., have confirmed they're considering an appeal to the board about Smith's use of an elbow in the combination that led to the first knockdown. Sauerland said, "We're looking at it," when he was asked about a potential appeal by Sky Sports.
Been a tough time for Kalle Sauerland, you know what I mean? Like last year, his first card on Channel 5, his fighter Udolphia lost to Denzel Bentley from Queensbury. Nathan Gorman got splattered all over the place by Fabio Wardley for the British title on the Dillian Whyte Jermaine Franklin undercard at Wembley Arena. Last year, the Eubank and Conor Benn fight falling through was a big blow. That was his first major move since him and his brother Nee started fronting the Wasserman brand. Then Chris goes into this fight with Liam Smith and is brutally stopped in 4 rounds. Now, it's unlikely the board are going to overturn the decision, yeah? And in my opinion, they shouldn't. This is how boxing plays out for the most part. If the referee doesn't see it, it's almost as good as legal. You know, if the gloves were doctored in a way that looked intentional to try and hurt Eubank, then you could see it getting overturned. Or a deliberate headbutt that the referee didn't see. But there's too much grey areas. There's a lot of people claiming, oh, he threw a hook, Eubank moved into it, and his elbow just followed through from a missed hook, etc., etc. And others like myself are saying, no, it was a blatant elbow, deliberate elbow. This is the denial. This is the stage of denial for Kalle and Chris after such a shocking setback. This is damage control to see what they can salvage out of a total disaster of an outing on Saturday, basically. That's what this is. You know, they have a rematch clause, but as things stand, they're going to have to take a considerably lower split than what they did the first go around, where I'm assuming Chris got the bulk of the split. You know, if they can maybe convince the board to run it again because of illegal tactics, then Liam wouldn't be in a position to demand more than what he did first go around, because now he's saying he wants to drain Eubank down to 157 in a rematch, which I wasn't impressed with that. I mean, you fought the guy at 160, you signed a rematch clause, and now you want to fight it at 157. You fought the first one at 160. I weren't impressed with that at all. You know, Roy Jones, Eubank's trainer, he also said it was an elbow. We haven't heard Chris himself though come out and support what Roy and Kalle is saying. I would imagine though they've all got their story together, and he's probably going to be singing off the same hymn sheet, more than likely. A rematch at Anfield, which is very ambitious from Ben Shalom, will be a absolutely huge event. And even though Eubank was battered with the illegal use of the elbow, but nevertheless he lost. I have no complaints about the victory for several reasons, which we're not going to go into now. This would be a huge fight, man, enormous, because there's going to be so much talking points. Was it an elbow? No, it wasn't an elbow. Eubank can't take losing. Yeah, Beefy's dirty. This time Eubank's going to get him. Does Eubank want to go into that cauldron again? He didn't look too comfortable. And I said it on the Hangout live. I didn't say it. Somebody in the comment section said, Eubank looks a bit, did they say worried? And he did have a little bit of a worried look. By the time he got to the ring, he looked more, okay, let's get down to business. But if he thought that Manchester crowd was hostile, because they booed him into the ring, whew, them Liverpudlians are going to be going crazy at Anfield. Now, news broke of this appeal being considered by Kalle just a couple of hours ago, and already Ben Shalom is responding, but not by speaking. He's uploaded 2 videos. One was titled, How Liam Smith Demolished Chris Eubank Jr. in 60 seconds. It's a YouTube short. The other one was Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith fight highlights. Conclusive 4th round win for Smith. You notice the use of the word conclusive? He's basically saying beyond any suspicion that Liam won illegally. Now, how does Liam play it? He might say, well, Eubank is being a bad sport. I don't want to rematch him. Or He might think cheeky, whatever. I don't mind beating him again, picking up a nice check. Liam, he responded similar to Ben without vocally replying. He posted up on Twitter a short vid of Mike Tyson laughing hysterically as if to say, Chris, I'm not taking this seriously.
You know, I think Kovalev obviously is confident because he posted it on his social media. So that shows you. He knows. I said to them, people, again, eyebrows raised. I said that we're the A-side. We're the A-side.
That was 2019. Tunde was insisting that Team Yard was the A-side over Kovalev. We're talking about a former unified champion in Kovalev. He was also saying he's not going to travel to America because of what happened to Fury, and Frank had worries about that, to fight Kovalev. The fight has to happen in London. It has to be a stadium fight because
Anthony Yarde is a big name in the UK.
So he was doing a lot of talking in 2019. But today, 2023, we see a more measured Tunde. In a video, he spoke about the abuse and the blame he received and the past criticism because Yarde lost to Kovalev eventually in Russia. Then Anthony lost to Lyndon Arthur and the camp was in turmoil. But they stuck with it, and as you can see, he has a way more measured approach, which is exemplified by Des Sani saying this.
There's like a knowing energy about you this time. And even Tunde as well, he's been more muted this time. It feels like you know something that everyone else perhaps doesn't. Is that the feeling?
Will the more mature Team Yard, with James Cook, the addition of James Cook, former British and European super middleweight champion and a good fighter, will that serve them better this time around with home advantage? It's an intriguing fight for me, that's all I can say. So, Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia is signed apparently. Ryan signed what he had to sign. What, to me, is a talking point is as soon as the contracts were signed by Ryan, Oscar wants to tell us how much pay-per-views the fight is going to do. 2.5 million. Now, with the piracy issues out there, that could be a stretch. But why not just talk about the fight? Why does it have to go straight to numbers? We're always crunching numbers. And I get it. I do get it. But if Mike Tyson didn't do no 2.5, if the influencers of the YouTubers ain't doing that, you don't do 2.5. See, it could be counterproductive by Oscar because in America, there's a lot of people, I'm an A-side fighter, I'm a big star. And then when you look at the numbers, it doesn't add up. So it's anticlimactic. And if you're going to climatize boxing fans to judge fights by how much they sell, and you don't sell, how is that any good for the sport? At a time when perhaps American boxing needs to be moving away from so much pay-per-view. I'm not saying obliterate it totally. But yo, they're making a fight that people want to see. So they can speculate big numbers. And if this doesn't tell you that you can't just keep putting on pay-per-views out there if you're not going to do cross-promotion. You can't. You know, the first thing we're talking about is what numbers it could do. We need to try and change the language. That's a discussion the boardroom should be having, but it swung so far in that direction towards the fans. That's all we seem to be talking about. And it's difficult not to get caught up in it, especially if you're covering the latest news like I am. It's difficult not to get caught up. Someone will be in the comment section or on Twitter baiting you about the fighter they support and the numbers they do in comparison to the fighters that I may support. And it's become more of a power struggle outside the ring than inside.
If he decides to stay with it and don't progress, it's Fabio Wardley, you know. This is not like me calling him out or anything like that. Huge respect for him. I think he did fantastic to win the British title. But I've said it before on social media and I'll say it again. He's got something that we both want and only one of us can have it. The second Fabio won that title, he put a big dot on himself and that's what we go for.
But he needs rounds, he needs to learn. And when he gets to those titles, he'll have all the rounds in the bank to go all the way. British title within 10 fights. Fabio Wardley will come in. You got the British title. We want you in the next few fights.
Fabio Wardley is now 15-0 with 14 knockouts. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. So he's not a small guy. He was a white-collar boxer, doesn't have much top-class amateur experience, and he's now a British champion as a pro. No mean achievement. 28 years of age. It's a good age. And we're wondering how far he can go. I think he should attain, or attempt to attain, the Lonsdale belt. He'll need 3 more fights, winning fights to do that, with the British title. And one of them fights could be Frazer Clarke, because as they're saying there, Frazer's got him as a target, and Ben Shalom says in the next few fights he wants Frazer to step up. Frazer is currently 5-0 with 4 knockouts. His last 2 performances, however, hasn't set the world on fire. There's a lot of critiques when Kamil Sokolowski took him the distance. Not a surprise for me that Sokolowski could take somebody in their 4th pro fight the distance. I think him gassing and looking a little ponderous in there was more the issue. Recently he fought on the Eubank Liam Smith bill, and his opponent Espindola, he retired at the end of the 4th with an injured right hand. Frazer and a lot of people were observing how he's improved his conditioning, although he was fractionally heavier than he was against Sokolowski at 272. But they were saying, you know, you could see a marked difference in the definition in his physique. But he had his trunks up high. It was hard to tell for me. And his opponent wasn't really trying to engage like that. He was a big lump of a guy, not shredded, but he was, you could see, he was a big man. Small, but big. Big arms, big legs. And despite his girth, he was able to move around the ring a little. And he was a little savvy, as a lot of Argentinians are. Frazer being a bronze medalist in China 2021, fighting many of the top amateurs at super heavy, that experience shouldn't be counted out in a potential matchup with Wardley. Wardley isn't going to come there to try and expose Frazer with negative tactics. He's going to come there to win. So it's a different fight from Sokolowski and Espindola, who fought to type in their journeyman roles. Now some people are going to say, it's too early, but Frazer's 31 with a wealth of amateur experience. Boxing is mental, and a lot of people have to realize you might not think somebody's ready or this and that, but you have to look at the mental aspect of it. If your fighter is looking uninspired, perhaps a little bored, you have to give him something that is going to inspire him, where he's not going to be bored. Where he knows now, you're on the big stage, Wardley is not a joke, he comes to take heads off, he has a vicious streak, especially when he's been tagged a few times. And Sky need to see what they've got. They need to see what they've got. They went all out with a nice financial package to get Frazer over there. And trust me, it's going to be interesting to see what the Eubank Smith numbers are. See, I'm talking about pay-per-views again. Because in the last couple of years since Eddie left, the only pay-per-view they've had is Liam Smith, Eubank, no world title on the line, and Kelbrook and Khan, 2 veterans, no world title on the line. So they need to get some returns on their investments. The people they broke the bank to get a hold of. Frazer Clarke. Ben Whittaker, is he injured? I haven't seen him in the ring for ages. You know, Frazer also has scar tissue. Suffered some bad cuts in the Olympics. He might go in one of them journeymans and end up bleeding out. Like, oh no. Injury loss, no contest, no decision. But you know, Jack Massey's staying at heavyweight. He wants a shot. Dave Allen, he wants a shot. Will they be able to jump Frazer Clarke ahead of them guys? You know, like Wardley acknowledged Clarke calling him out, and he just repeated what Frazer said. He needs a few more fights, and yeah, he needs a few more fights. Take on Jack Massey. So there's a lot of people after that belt. It's not just Frazer Clarke. It's not just the belt sitting there in a corner with no one's interested in. It's a pivotal strap to collect if you're going to move on, if you're a British fighter. There's also Commonwealth and European. There's lots of good fights out there. Nobody should be going short without a good fight that people want to see. Southern area, Northern area, Central area, English title. I mean, online, here's where I start. Online, somebody said, Jermaine Franklin, the 989 assassin from Michigan, is a journeyman despite only losing once. 1 loss in 21 fights, he's a journeyman. And online is a scary place. Because there's just a lot of stupid people on there, and there always has been, and there always will be. The fact that these stupid people can get traction and get people to follow behind what they have to say on any topic, not just boxing, but any topic, is scary. You know, this is the lowest AJ's went down the pecking order since, when, 2016, 2015? To find an opponent. And some people, they're just doing it to stir up emotions. They're stirrers. But some people just don't know any better. And I'm talking as men. You should at least have the intestinal fortitude to let the fight play out. And if Joshua struggles to a 10-round decision or is put on the deck or loses, then you can take your pound of flesh. But you can't do that. Like, you can't find one opponent Joshua has faced in his whole career who someone hasn't picked holes in. Not one. Look, and it's not that, oh, it's so unfair with Joshua. Joshua has amassed a fortune from boxing, has been unified champion twice, Olympic medalist. He's accomplished enough. A whole lot. That went out the window. You're going to do what you're going to do. It's the fact you are so irrational. And people are saying, nobody wants to see it. Well, if that's the case, the O2 Arena would not be filled. And I guarantee you, after one day, after the tickets go online, you won't be able to get one. And these tickets will be retained by those who purchase. They ain't going on no second. Some of them might go on the secondary market. There's always touts who do that. But most people who purchase these tickets will be in attendance. Let's not exaggerate. It's going to be a pay-per-view event, and it's going to do upwards to near 1 million. So you saying that is an overreaction. It's irrational. And I know a lot of people don't like when I say that, but that's the truth. Rick Ramos, Jessica McCaskill's coach, he said, yes, perfect, respectable opponent. It's time to rebuild Anthony Joshua. He is a star, and he has the money behind him to rebuild. Franklin is young, hungry. 6.5, 7 out of 10 is what he grades him as an opponent. I would have went with someone similar. This is a good pick. Jazza Dickens, he says AJ could do with a win, build his confidence back up. He hasn't won a fight for over 2 years. Whilst the belts are tied up, he should seize the opportunity and enjoy his boxing, find himself with the immense pressure he has faced during his reign, and most importantly, get himself back to winning ways with his new team. Spike O'Sullivan, good fight this, good luck to both warriors. Tim Rickson, British Boxing News editor. It's a big long paragraph by Tim here. He said he thinks it's a decent opponent. He's ranked 12 by the WBO, familiar to UK fans. Top 15 opponent. He outlanded Dillian by 21 punches, so was unlucky not to win. Arjun Goriki, featherweight prospect. It's a very good comeback fight for AJ to get his confidence back and to try new things. They've been working with his new trainer. People are never satisfied and they always find something to complain about. The same ones complaining are the same ones that saying that Franklin beat Dillian White in the fight. Daniel Smith, another writer for British Boxing News. In terms of whether Jermaine Franklin is a worthy opponent, there's no odds, for Joshua will not be mixing it up with the American to acquire anything but a starchy knockout on his resume. Neil O'Connell, a boxing writer, he thinks Franklin is a very suitable opponent. Most of the people critiquing Jermaine Franklin are trolls online, on Twitter, on YouTube, trying to stir up shit. And I include people like Simon Jordan, trolls trying to stir up shit. Let me tell you the reality of it. If Joseph Parker had returned to the ring after losing to Joe Joyce and said he was fighting Jermaine Franklin, oh, what a fight to put on the undercard. I'm telling you now. He beat Dillian. That would come into play. That he beat Dillian but didn't get the decision. But with Joshua, they're not going to talk about controversial decision with Dillian. They're not going to talk about him only losing once in 21 fights. None of that. There's no heavyweight, including Tyson Fury, who Jermaine Franklin could have fought who would get critiqued like Anthony Joshua would. Not one. Not one. Wilder, Fury, Hrgovic, Parker, Joyce, not one. Not one. This is reserved for one particular heavyweight. Not Jared Anderson, Dubois. If Dubois was facing Jermaine Franklin, the Frank Warren fans, who are conveniently Frank Warrens just to oppose Eddie Hearn, they don't know nothing about Frank Warren. You tell me they wouldn't be getting all excited if Dubois was fighting Jermaine Franklin. So if Joshua has accomplished so little in your opinion, and is so limited, why are you so critical of this opponent for Joshua, but if he fought anyone else, it would be acceptable? April the 1st, O2 Arena DAZN is where it takes place. The last Usyk fight definitely impacted on AJ pretty badly, and if he psychologically recovered from that, fully, I'll be surprised. So it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back against Jermaine. Jermaine, he's got it all to play for, obviously. Biggest fight of his life. People can cry down the fight all they want. It's very important. It's very important for Anthony Joshua and Jermaine Franklin. This is a big fight. What was it? 2021? ARUM pours cold water on BETERBIEV BIVOL fight, which would have been for undisputed. The fight has no pizzazz. BIVOL is sort of boring. Now, on the day of the weigh-in between BETERBIEV and Anthony Yarde, here's what he has to say. If Hearn is willing to do the BETERBIEV BIVOL on ESPN, we'll do it anytime, any place. It's amazing what a win over Canelo can do to your profile and how people view you. I mean, because it's still the same boring BIVOL, bub. The one you didn't want to make the fight with. What's changed? We could have had an undisputed 175-pound champion right now. We could have had it. But he fucked it up. He fucked up a lot of shit, Bob. A lot. Bob Arum gets nowhere near the amount of criticism he shouldn't get. If some of you got so much criticism for other figures in boxing, Bob Arum is getting off light.